The 14th Dalai Lama and the Anatomy of Politically Correct Buddhism, a multimedia presentation Part 3, based upon Stephen's chapter in Westmont University Professor Inross, A Guide to New Religious Movements, published by InterVarsity Press in 2005. The office of the Dalai Lama has systematically developed the doctrine of skillful means over 1,300 years. Tibet, an isolated and sparsely populated country with a weak standing army, is strategically located between four historical military giants: China, Mongolia, Russia, and India. Consequently, it has had to rely upon its religious and political prowess to survive. Tibet was not always Buddhist. Tibetans, in fact, were followers of Bon, an indigenous faith centered on shamans who worship fierce mountain gods and other demonic spirits. In AD 642, the Tibetan king granted his Chinese and Nepalese wives wish to introduce Buddhism. A little over 100 years later, in 745 AD, Padmasambhava, an Indian tantric, journeyed to Tibet and taught that humans could reach enlightenment in one lifetime. At the request of the Tibetan king Detsen, who was Buddhist, he waged war against and conquered all the malignant gods in Tibet, only sparing those that promised to become defenders of the law, or Dharma, therefore known as Dharmapala. Padmasambhava introduced the systematic practice of the Tantras to Tibetans, which involved the use of mantras, chants intended to invoke divine power, mandalas, circular sand paintings of deities, deity yoga, symbolic sexual union with deities, mudras, occult hand gestures, and magic. A mandala is a cosmic diagram that represents the dwelling place or celestial mansion of a deity and its accompanying retinue of 722 deities. Here's a sketch of the Maitreya Buddha, the future Messiah Buddha, being built in Uttar Pradesh, India, in a giant mandala pattern. The interior of the statue will house over 1,330,000 Buddhist objects of worship, including the relics from the Blood Relic Tour, which is traversing the world raising $250 million for the project. Originally, Buddhists attempted to co-opt control of Tibet from the Bon rulers by challenging the power of the local gods. One researcher has discovered drawings from this period, and they reveal that when Buddhists initially tried to establish authority by building an altar on the grounds of the capital, someone always tore the altar down. Frustrated by their lack of success, the Buddhists consulted their oracles, which instructed them to locate spiritual power points throughout the nation, a type of Buddhist geomancy or spiritual mapping. Build altars there, make offerings to the local gods on mountain peaks, valleys, rivers, and lakes, subjugating the local deities, a type of power encounter. As the Buddhists completed their assignment, they noticed that key points on the national map formed a constellation-like image of a demoness who was nailed down. They built the Jokan temple at the heart of the woman and were then able to assume authority over the kingdom in Lhasa, the city of the gods. Consequently, some Buddhologists speculate that Tibetan Buddhism is founded on the symbolic subjugation of a woman who is nailed down alive at the bottom of a lake near the Jokang. The location of this power center is Lhasa, the city of the gods, capital of Tibet, and the former residence of the Dalai Lama. Later, as Muslim invaders were destroying Buddhism in northern India, Genghis Khan in 1206 led the Mongols in a war to establish his kingdom across China and Mongolia. Then in 1279, the great fifth Dalai Lama converted Kublai Khan to Tibetan Buddhism. The Tibetan Lamas seized this opportunity to convert the notorious Kublai Khan to Tibetan Buddhism before he became the Emperor of China in 1279. A symbiotic patron-priest relationship served both parties well, as the Tibetan Grand Lama became a vassal ruler of Tibet and spiritual advisor to the emperor, influencing the Khan's vast empire stretching from the east, Asia Sea, across Asia to Russia's Ukraine, reaching all the way to modern-day Baghdad. The great fifth Dalai Lama is the 14th Dalai Lama's historical mentor, as Stalin, Hitler, and Nebuchadnezzar were Saddam Hussein's. The Miaoying Temple, White Dagoba, a Tibetan Buddhist temple founded in 1271 in Beijing under Mongol rule, is still in existence to this day. The Kala Chakra Tantra, otherwise known as the God of the Wheel of Time Tantra, is a secret ritual empowerment ceremony during which the Dalai Lama initiates disciples into the Shambhala kingdom through deity yoga. Yoga literally means yoke with Brahma, a Hindu deity. The Kala Chakra Tantra is a ceremony which introduces the disciples of the Dalai Lama to his incarnation as the Adi Buddha, also known as the Universal Religious Emperor or Monarch. The Tantric technique for building the Universal Buddhist ruler's power is the exploitation of female sexual energy. I recall speaking to one female consort to a Tibetan Lama in Seattle who was so wounded by the actual tantric sexual abuse by a tantric master, she could not talk in depth about the experience. One Western Tibetan Buddhist nun, Campbell, has talked about her experience extensively in the shadow of the Dalai Lama and on a website. A key component of this movement's religious agenda is the establishment of Shambhala, a global Buddhist empire. Ogban Dorjiev, tutor to the 13th Dalai Lama and an emissary to Russia, created his own Shambhala project, a vision of how this great Buddhist empire would come about. It wouldn't be a otherworldly spiritual kingdom as in Christianity, but a literal earthly empire. This is a postcard image of a mobile temple. On it rests the Burkhan, an image of a Mahayana Buddhist deity. The mobile temple seen here in the 1930s in Siberia serves and accompanies a pastoral nomadic tribe, even as the tribe migrates. It seems reminiscent of the Jewish Ark of the Covenant in some strange Buddhist way. One of these artifacts is displayed today at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. After the Russian Revolution, Dorjiev negotiated the political support of the Bolshevik regime in his religious vision by stating that Buddhist doctrine is largely compatible with current communist thinking. He also counted the work of Lama Geshe Wangyal as an important part of the Shambhala project. When a group of refugees from Kalmykia, a Tibetan Buddhist republic in the former Soviet Union, near the Caspian Sea, were fleeing Stalin, they crossed the ocean in 1952 and settled in New Jersey, the first group of Tibetan Buddhists to see Lady Liberty. The Kalmy Geshe Nangwal Wangyal, the teacher of many of the foremost Western Buddhist scholars, such as Robert Thurman and Jeffrey Hopkins, was a Geshe from the Drepung Gomang. Bakshi would often tell stories to his students of his travels from Kalmykia to Tibet, and within China and Mongolia later in his life. He came to the U.S. in 1955, and shortly after established the first Tibetan Buddhist monastery in America.